Tapu, Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Harun Nefer. This is Qesankh with another video for you. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what is your purpose in life. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. And if you want to know when I upload new videos or recorded videos, hit the subscribe button below and you'll get notifications. If you want to learn more about my spiritual teachings, scroll down below and click on any one of those links and you can download a free ebook. And we have some really good ebooks. Check them out. However, if you want to take your spirituality to the next level, not religion, but spirituality to the next level, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. It's up to you. You can cancel at any time. You will get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, videos that will teach you how to astral project, how to communicate with the ancestors, how to go and travel to different dimensions, how to create a magical amulet, how to do self-hypnosis to get rid of your negative habits, and how to do oracle readings. And if you are an Osiris or Osiris level supporter, you'll get all your readings for free. So become a Patreon supporter today. Last but not least, share this video with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. So, Haru Nefer, may Buddha bless you. I'm back. I was doing some traveling, and it was a lot of plane rides. And I was telling someone how I used to be afraid of flying, and I got that from my mother. My mother was afraid of a lot of things. I don't know why, but she was afraid of a lot of things. And I got over that because I got a job that required I travel from New York to the West Coast, LA, and I had to travel a lot. So I learned to really just get in there and overcome that fear. And in addition to that, I put myself in a state of hypnosis where I fed myself suggestions to not be afraid of flying. And after that, I actually enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed the turbulence. And what is kind of really weird, and you may find this a little sick in a way, but before I take a flight, I like to watch and study aviation, but more importantly, plane crashes. They interest me on how these planes come down and the horrific way they come down. And I've already told you one of my favorite films is a film with Jeff Bridges called Fearless, where he's a plane crash survivor. So I tend to watch a lot of those, which I shouldn't. And I'm going to tell you why that's important. But it never makes me afraid to fly. Prior to coming into the awakening of my spirituality, I would look and see if the plane or the gate was 666 or the plane number was 666, that I wouldn't fly. It was interesting. But I find it also very challenging to make my connecting flights. So I hate that because I always, in a way, miss them because I get preoccupied with other things. But I digress. We're here to talk about your purpose in life, what's going on. It's interesting because I happen on two of the flights to sit next to the most talkative women ever. And there was nothing I could, the first flight, I got a woman who is a very heavyset woman, but she just couldn't stop talking. She was a Southerner, I can tell. She was asking, "Are you a Trump supporter?" And she just, but the thing was, let me explain something to you, Paula and Miss Sekhmet and all those watching. When you come into a knowledge of spirituality, you know that nothing doesn't happen. Nothing doesn't happen for a reason. Everything has a reason, is what I'm trying to say. That nothing is by coincidence. So I knew that woman was sitting next to me was actually an avatar. That she manifested in my seat next to me for a reason. And lo and behold, as I'm talking to her, she's regurgitating things that I was thinking about prior to the flight. And one of the things I was thinking about was how Christians and these Western religions are set up to keep you away from meditation. Because I've been doing a lot of meditation lately. Of course, it's the holiday season. That's when you should be doing your meditations and your fasting. So as I was talking to her, she asked me what religion was I brought up. And I was like, well, I was brought up in Southern Baptist. And she was so excited. She loved that idea. She asked me, was I going to marry a Southern Baptist woman? I said, no, I would not. She was so nosy. She made me take out my phone and show her pictures of my mate in the phone because she wanted. And then she had all this crazy stuff. She goes, "Do you date black girls? Because I don't see you." And the woman is white. She says, "I don't see you with black girls." And then when I told her that I was biracial, she flipped out. She was like, "Really? I didn't know that you were part black." So yeah. So anyway, the interesting thing about what she was saying was there were some really good things that she said that Nete, God, wanted me to hear. So I knew that I had manifested her for that purpose. But the interesting thing she said was, if I want things in life, what do I do? I said, well, I meditate. I meditate, visualize. She says, you mean prayer? I go, yeah. She says, yes, that's good. That's good. And I noticed every time I said meditation, she interrupted and said, you mean prayer? This is because the ruling elite has set it up so that the Christians don't see meditation as a good thing. They have vilified it in their congregations, in the media, as the gateway to hell, to the devil. And I just find that so absurd and so brainwashed of a people to even think about that. Because when you read the scientific research that meditation lowers blood pressure, it extends your life, it relieves stress and anxiety, it brings about clarity, it increases your IQ. Yet these Christians believe it's evil and you must pray. Prayer and meditation are two totally different things. Two totally different things. But in her mind, she couldn't accept meditation. And that is one of the things I was thinking prior to the flight of having to deal with as a priest myself. How was I going to deal with these pimp pastor ministers in these mega churches who put out the propaganda to vilify Egypt, meditation, and our way of life? You see, people in ancient Egypt and Africa as a whole walked around nude. The body wasn't looked upon as a sexual object. There was no shame in it. But when you have these fundamental Christians, fanatical Christians who would see the body as sinful. Even in Muslim communities, they don't want you looking at their women, so they cover their women up. This is an indication that we're in the dark ages. We had children walking around naked in ancient Kemet. Herodotus, the Greek historian, documented this in his book Histories. How he went to Kemet and he saw these children walking around naked. No fear of being abducted by pedophiles. This is how we lived in Kemet. Why were we able to do this? Why did we have a society that was low on crime, low on perversion, pornography, serial killing, capitalism, greed? It was because everyone knew what their purpose in life was, and they started on the journey toward that. Everyone in Kemet had the same goal. Kemet, Egypt, the Kamal people had the same goal because they knew what their purpose was and they pursued it. See, when I listen, and I do listen to these other channels of these people claiming to be spiritual, highly evolved. And it was interesting because the high priest I learned from, he said, Qesankh, you notice one thing, that when you listen to Native Americans, they never mention God. He says, powering off. Okay. They talk about the Great Spirit, but they don't give reverence to God. Not that he was looking down upon them, but he made an important point. When you go to these other channels and you hear these people giving you their intellectual masturbation and talking about all of this stuff, what is absent from the discussion is God. Oh, they may talk about Amen, Sekhmet, Harukuhuti, Sebek, Anubis, Amet, Nebhet. but they don't talk about God. The driving force in your life must be God in everything that you do. And many, especially the women, I'm going to say this, you guys are out of pocket. And you've gotten that way because you have a pimp pastor minister who wants you to keep tithing to his congregation. So he refuses to tell you the truth about the thing that you're not doing right. He makes it seem like it's someone else's fault or society's fault when it's your own fault. See, your purpose in life, and we just did our contest online, and it was wonderful. I believe the question was, why did God create you? And many people were so close, but not there. And the answer was so simple. If you had the Meduniter Volume 1, you could research it. But you see, God in the beginning was one. And because God was alone, there was nothing for God to interact with. So God had supreme knowledge, supreme power. But God didn't have an experience, because to have an experience, you have to have something to interact with. So God created us, created all that there is, created reality, created this fourth dimensional plane, and created individualization, which is key. Individualize itself, herself, himself, into the billions upon billions of solar systems, different dimensions and realities, so that God can interact with itself and know itself. Because from interacting with itself, it would gain experience. So your purpose is connected to that. Your purpose is to give rise to Osir within you. Because God places consciousness within you so God can experience the fourth dimensional plane. See, God cannot manifest in this reality because God is immaterial. You can't see, feel, hear, taste God. So God says, I need a vehicle to experience this fourth dimensional plane. So God created us, this avatar, and places consciousness within us to have an experience and learn from that experience. And then God gave us a theme, which is called our incarnation objective, to explore. And exploring the theme, your job is to give rise to the God within you so you can use your godly powers. I was listening to this Christian program, and they were debating on, why is God allowing people to suffer? Why is God allowing pain? Why is God allowing the Illuminati? To the answer to that question, ooh, you know what? That's going to be our next question. I'm not going to give you the answer. I just thought about that. Let me not give you the answer. That's going to be our next question with a nice prize there. But the Christians can't answer that because they don't know. They don't know why God allows that. They even forget that God allows for the devil to exist. The devil is not just as powerful as God. The devil is there so that mankind can have free will, a choice. They don't even know that. Ask them, well, if God is all powerful and all good, why did he create the devil to tempt and corrupt man? Because if you have just a God, then you must do what that God says, right? As by the 10 Commandments that Moses brought down from the cloud. He downloaded the 10 Commandments from the cloud, okay? He was the first one to use the cloud. But when he came down off that mountain with the 10 Commandments and gave it to us, at that point, there was no choice, no freedom, there's no free will. You have to just obey that. The presence of the devil and his temptation to steer you away from the 10 Commandments and to do whatever you want and feel, then gives you free will. And God will never interfere in your free will. God will even allow you to curse him, and God will still love you. And it's a great thing that we have the free will. Now, there's different understanding of free will, because some people think free will means really choice, and I'm using it in that way to facilitate this conversation, but it doesn't mean choice necessarily. Choice is a byproduct of it. Free will means that who you are, is essentially unconditioned, meaning you have no propensity to have likes or dislikes. Your spirit is free, and your will to do something must be empowered. And the way you empower it, for example, if I want to go to the gym, well, I can say that. I can declare it with my left brain, but I'm not going to do it until I empower my will, which is going to trance, meditation, or hypnosis, and visualize myself going to the gym and see it in a very positive way, not in a negative way. That will program my subconscious mind and empower my will to do so. You see? See, the essential state is unconditioned, undifferentiated. And when I mean undifferentiated, I mean that you're not individualized. Your essential state is oneness with all, not individualized. There's only one consciousness. But remember, God created individualization to interact with, to have an experience, but your true essence is oneness. It's a singularity. And for you to do something, you have to empower your will, or else you will be programmed by the dominant elite. And many of us have been, which is why our intelligence is so low. We don't know right from wrong. As I said before, you have these internet so-called gurus talking this intellectual masturbation, but God never comes into the picture. They never talk about God, because God plays an essential role in your life, because God needs you. Let me say it again. God needs you. There is an interdependence, interrelationship between you and God. God needs you to experience this fourth dimensional plane. God loves you. And you are servicing God by allowing your vehicle to be the container for God's consciousness. That's how you be in service of God. And to follow the word of God is not to read a book, a Bible, a Torah, a Quran. It is to follow the oracles, the word of God. When the oracle says to do this, then do it. One of the reasons why I got over my fear of planes, because my mother really instilled that in myself and my brother, that fear, was that I go to the oracle and say, hey, is this plane okay to take? Am I going to crash? Oracle say, you're okay, Qesankh, take the plane. So I know if the oracle, which is the word of God, says you're okay, then I'm okay. I have nothing to worry about. So, and that's also missing and absent from many of these other so-called gurus' channels. Never talk about the oracle. Then how do you know what the right thing to do in life is? Because you have not risen to the level of accessing the Akashic records to have the wisdom to know what to do. You're not Hermes Trismegistus yet. You're not Thoth. You're not Tahuti. You don't have that type of wisdom yet. So you need a tool to help you. So you go to the oracles. Every ancient society had an oracle system. The Chinese had the I-ching. Research the Greek culture. They had oracles. They had men and women who were oracles, and they lived in the caves, and they had special incense that would put them in trance, and they didn't expose themselves to the world because they wanted to stay in a certain state, which is the communing with God or the Akashic records. So they can intuit the wisdom of God to you. So God has to play a major role in everything you do. God is your purpose in life. It's to give rise to Osir within you. You see, you're operating out of the mammalian and reptilian brain right now. You haven't risen to the neocortex. You haven't given rise to Osir. And until you do that, you won't have the powers that you need to have to get rid of or to change this planet. And we must change this planet. There's too much corruption. And you don't change this planet by participating in an active coup d'etat or revolution. You change this planet by giving rise to Osir. That vibratory frequency will permeate and affect others due to the 100 monkey principle or the butterfly effect. The best, that is correct. People are too emotional when they do their oracle readings. They taint the oracle readings. They slant them in their favor. The oracle reading tells you break up with your mate. People are too emotionally tied to the mate, and they can't. No, that's not what the oracle says to break up. It's saying when you take a break. No, it's telling you to leave your mate. Your mate's no good for you. That's a hard pill for some people to swallow. Now, the reason why you want to give rise to Osir within you, yes, so God can experience this reality, but also for you to help put into effect the revolution, to change things. Because you're not going to change things through legislation, through voting, through talk. Talk is sebek. Talk is meaningless without the power to back it up. You know what I mean? Your power is there within you, waiting to emerge. But it can't if you are bound by your Sahu animal nature. Which in ancient Kemet, we saw this in the form of the human figures with the heads of animals to symbolize dominated by this certain animal spirit, anthropomorphized figures. And there was a separate language that we taught in ancient Kemet. That language was through metaphors and puns and analogies. This is why you may have the dung beetle with the sun, holding the sun. And if you interpret that correctly, you can say the transformation of the sun. Or the sun is risen. Do you understand? That's how we communicate. That's how we talked. This is why the left brain Westerners and Christians misinterpret the Bible, because it is full of symbolism. And it was created, there was an old ancient language around it based on astrotheology. And if you learn to read the symbols, like the ibis bird, like the serpents, which symbolizes the kundalini, if you learn to read those things, you'll understand life more and the occult secrets. But we're too stuck on reading everything literally from the Bible. But that's how it was planned, you see, because the ruling elite, the cabal, created these religions. Don't believe the BS that they're putting out there, that Muhammad had his holy war, and thus came the Quran, and all these biblical figures, Moses and Jesus, and after that someone documented it, and thus came the King James Bible version. That's not how it happened. This was created by the cabal, by the Illuminati, and put out there to the world to imprison your mind in left brain thinking. That's what the purpose of religions are. And these ministers are taskmasters. They've been appointed to keep you in check so you don't start meditating, start using your third eye, start reaching higher levels of thinking. They don't want you to become the next so-called risen Christ, or the next Tehuti, or the next Osir, or the next Haru, Horus. They don't want you to be that. So they have to imprison you. That's why people of color are so dangerous to the ruling elite. Let me say it again. People of color are so dangerous to the ruling elite, but yet people of color don't know their own power and their own worth. You see, you are right brain thinkers, which equates to integrated brain thinkers or whole brain thinkers. You are the ones that created the Egyptian mystery schools and the secret languages of the occults and the secret societies. You are the ones that created stargates that you could travel through other planets, galaxies. You are the ones that went and had the afterlife experiences and came back and gave us the book of the dead, the book of coming forth by day and by night, and told us what it's like to die. Yes, you died and came back, and you gave us the knowledge of what it was like. But this left brain society, so linear, can only think of one thing in a very linear, perverted fashion. Celebrates life over death. Makes ghosts and spirits seem evil and spooky. I went to my mother's house and I stayed there, and she has passed on. So I was concerned about a spirit coming and visiting me in the house. And then I had to snap out of it and say, the old me would have been afraid of something like that in this house. But the me here as a priest, I know that I am not afraid of demons or spirits, because there's a hierarchy, and God made you above the demons and spirits. You're supposed to be commanding them, by the way. And I caught me one here too. See? Yeah, there's one inside there though. But anyway, and I know that if I watch a bunch of horror movies, now listen closely, if I watch a bunch of horror movies, I will become scared, and my state, my frequency will change. And when it gets night in that house and I'm by myself, I will manifest a poltergeist. I will be the one that manifests a poltergeist. The poltergeist won't just come out on its own. And I will have that experience. In the same way, if I were to watch if I would binge watch Terminator films, I would start manifesting a world where computers would start to take over and AI would become dominant. Because when you permeate your psyche with those things, and it becomes power with an emotion, then you manifest it in this reality. This is why you can experience that God is so divine, Dwaneta, in his or her wisdom and his or her power, in creating us so that whatever we bombard our psyche with will manifest. If you are afraid of your child having an accident, well, your child will have an accident because you'll manifest that. But if I manifest in my head with intense emotion that I will come into a lot of money, you're going to come into a lot of money. There's no doubt about that. You see those investigators or spirit investigators go into house looking to find evidence of spirits and stuff like that. Well, if they are matching the frequency of the poltergeist, it will appear. An apparition will appear because they will shift vibrationally into that reality where it will exist. This is how powerful you are. There's an infinite number of realities for you to experience. All you have to do is bombard your spirit or your psyche with that vibrational frequency. And see it rise in this reality. That's all you have to do. But the narrative has been set. The ruling elite, they have set the narrative. They want to keep you locked in this reality. They don't want you quantum leaping or shifting to different realities. They want to keep you here because they need you to service them. So they do this by hook or crook. They put out the Hollywood movies, which never talk about God and your powers. They put out the TV shows, never talk about God and your powers. And they keep you trapped in fourth dimensional thinking. And you never reach 5D. You never come into your own. You never realize that you can manifest your own wealth, your own power. The two ladies that sat next to me on different flights were manifested by myself. Because I was trying to find the answer to certain things. So I manifested avatars to give me the answer. When I got back off my trips, I did 48 hours of no sleep, sleep deprivation. And then I went into trance, and I permeated my subconscious mind with a thought, an idea, because I wanted to manifest something. And I just gave you the secret. I just gave you a technique, a powerful technique for manifesting a new reality: sleep deprivation. 48 hours I went without sleep. I didn't even want to go to sleep on the plane. Then I lied down. And as I was fading off, I fed myself a post-hypnotic suggestion of what I wanted to manifest. And it did. That's how you do it. Simple as that. But first, the first prerequisite is that you must believe you are God. You must understand that you are the cause of things in the world and not the effect. The cause of things in the world and not the effect. Do you understand? You see, when I see things happen, I don't get bent out of shape. I see on TV Elon Musk talk about this and that, being hooked up to computers, the computer control your thinking. I'm like, oh, okay, well, he doesn't really exist anyway. He's just an avatar I created to warn me about a possible reality that could manifest if I focus on that manifestation. But I will not focus on that, so I choose to manifest a different reality. You understand? That's not how it's done. You don't want herbs and stuff. You don't want to depend on these things. You can use them, but you don't want to depend on these things. You need to be able to awaken your third eye without that. And I recommend you use the mantras or the hekau is the best way to do that. Or music. The Egyptians relied heavily upon harmonic frequencies. See, you don't want to. The I-ching says you let your magic tortoise go and you lean on things which can't support you. You don't want to become dependent on an herb or an incense or a mantra. Those things are good to start out with, but eventually you have to get along without them. This is why I spent a lot of time on this channel teaching about manifestation without doing rituals. Rituals are a powerful, powerful way to manifest things in your life. But I wanted to give you something that's very simple, very straightforward, so you wouldn't have to spend a lot of time. I was trained in ritual, and I can tell you it's a lot of work. Sometimes you have to send off for special herbs that take a month to get to you by boat. And then you do the ritual, it doesn't work. You got to try something else. So you spend all that money and time on it. So in lieu of that, I say, try what I've just given you. It'll work. Now, as for your third eye opening, the best way to do that is through sound. Through sound. Mantras. And the best mantra for that is the mantra of Nekabet and Wajet. When you start working with those mantras, you'll start having premonitions, psychic visions. Your intelligence will increase, things like that. Now, what is the third eye? We can contrast that or connect that with whole brain thinking. See, that is I'm not going to say too much of it because I want to put this as the next question too. But that is the problem with the world today, a lack of whole brain thinking. This is why we're in the situation that we're in now. Because the IQ level of the planet has been decreased. We're not producing geniuses like we did in yesteryear. There's no more Nikola Teslas, Imhoteps, Einsteins. We're just passing off information from one person to another. And we're thinking that's education. We're thinking that's learning. It's not. When you start getting into spirit evocation, then you start working with the genii. And there's a genii for everything that you want in life, for money, for love, for intelligence, for music, dance. There's a genii for all of that. And if you work with those genii, they will give you those gifts. There's a genii for opening your third eye. There's a genii that'll make you a master magician. So start working with those. Lady Marie, that's good because typically you need incense. You do. But if he appeared without the incense, that is awesome. That's awesome. For those of you who don't realize, the deity will sometimes, well, most times will appear in the incense, the smoke. You guys have to see yourself as warriors because you're part of the privileged few who are learning this information that's being passed on to you. You're ahead of the curve. You're early adapters. So you are the ones that could lead the revolution if you just stay on course. Because the planet is lost right now. It is lost. We don't know what our real history is because they have hacked our brains and installed or downloaded false memories. We don't know if slavery really happened. We don't know. That could have just been a download. We don't know if the Civil War really happened. That could have been just a download. Or 9/11. You have a memory and you swear it's real, but that could be just a download. You see, the space-time continuum that you exist in presently has been tampered with. They have gone in there and hacked your brain and installed false ideas and false memories. And I'm going to tell you this because you don't need to worry about the cabal. The cabal is not your problem. There's a deadly, evil force on this planet that controls the cabal. Your George Soros, your Rockefellers, your Bill Gates. This evil force is a consciousness that is deadly. And this force has been present for centuries. And it's been dictating and giving orders to the ruling elite to keep the planet trapped in left brain thinking. That's who you're dealing with here. And I mean to bring them up in this discussion, but I want you to understand what you're facing. But in the same way that they exist, we can contact very loving interdimensional beings that will assist us in our ascension to higher levels of consciousness. If we tune into them, if we believe in this, the same way you manifested Anpu, you can manifest these loving beings. And they will give you wisdom and guidance in how to get through these turbulent times. This is why you're part of the select few who are getting this message. Now, many out there will look at you like you're crazy. They'll put you on the peripheral. They'll disconnect from you, but that's okay. You don't need to be talking to them anyway, because they're trapped in the matrix and they're not going to come out. So there's no talking to them, no negotiating, or no bringing to them evidence and documentation. You can't argue with a Christian because they're so full of emotion. They can't see truth. They can't see logic. They're being controlled by a pendulum. So there's no need in trying to bring to light the foolishness of what they're doing. And I'm not here to say that Christians are evil or wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you're being misled. Let me give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example. The LGBT community is selfish. And I say it is selfish in this way. The ruling elite doesn't care about them. But the ruling elite creates programs, funds them, so they can use them and pit them against other groups. So I say to you, to the LGBT community, you're being used. That the ruling elite don't care about you. They don't care about your issues. Why are you allowing yourself to be used by these evil, manipulative people? Because you're getting a short-term gain. You're getting some funds, you're getting some legislation, but don't you realize that they're just setting you up for a big fall? And they're using you in the sense that they're trying to make you think that people are against you. No one is against you. We have to realize that. Well, they have to realize that. Because we need to band together and work together as a whole to fight this evil presence on this planet. That's how this presence on this planet gets away with murder, by causing these divisions and these factions. And these factions fight each other. And we never look up at the real puppet master pulling the strings. I once was talking to a very well-educated friend, and we were talking about slavery, the domination of left brain thinking on the planet. And I told him, quite frankly, no group could have done this on their own. No group could have done this, could have captured this planet in the way that we see it now on its own. They had to have help. Now the question is, who is that help? And these so-called cabal or the 1%ers are in tuned or attached to something very evil. And it is so evil, it doesn't have empathy or sympathy for you. It is sadistic in nature. It takes pleasure in your pain and suffering. And for you to do battle with this, you have to become God. That is your purpose. You have to give rise to a Sarah within you. It's important. Because when you give rise to God within you, you shift to a new reality, and their power becomes less influential with every quantum leap. Does that make sense? to the point where you'll leap to a reality where they don't exist anymore. And that's what you want to do. That is the goal. Don't you see? But you first have to put God at the center of things. You cannot be using this as an exercise as intellectual masturbation. Go along just to get along and think that they'll leave you alone and you'll be all right. It's not going to work that way. See, you're targeted for, as I say, the Terminator, you're targeted for extermination. They're coming after you whether you like it or not. The question is, who are you going to align with? God and these other angelic beings are here to help. All you have to do is just reach out. But it's difficult because you know why? It calls for you to reject everything in modern society. And most people are too attached to the matrix to want to reject it. And I'll give you an example. I am not any different. The oracle told me, get rid of your Western name. Get rid of your Western name. And I said, well, that's my brand. That's everything I am. If I get rid of my Western name, how are people going to know? You know, I was just on a panel the other day. I was on a panel, right? And the host on the panel asked my permission if it was okay for me to call him Q. About him to call me Q. Because he couldn't pronounce Qesankh ma-keperu. I said, no, you can't do that. You have to pronounce the name because the name is a mantra. It's a word of power. So I helped him to pronounce it better. So I'm thinking, oh my God, are people going to be running around calling me Q or Brother Q or just Q? Like Q in Star Trek, which is kind of cool, but they can't do that because it's a mantra. It's a word of power. You know what I'm saying? But that's my animal spirit trying to hold on to this world. And not seeing the blessing that can come from this. Somebody wrote up on one of my YouTube pages when I talked about the cows pooping on my property. He said, no, you're looking at it all wrong. It's not a bad thing. It could really be a good thing. It could be a blessing. And I wrote back to him and said, I know. I did the reading with the I-ching on the symbology of what this really meant. And it gave me the 35th hexagram progress. So I'm not too uptight about it. So there's something positive will come out of it. And then when I look, I say, okay, well, I have to be straight and tell them not to call me Q. But when they hear my name, they know I represent something. They know I'm an ambassador for God, that I represent an ancient way of living that's rising up again, that behind me is God, the ancestors, these interdimensional beings, spirits, pendulums, all those things behind me and supporting me. And if people mess up my name here and there, that's okay. I'll correct them. And eventually they'll get it. I mean, we now know M. Shamalang Night. We now know how to pronounce his name, right? Okay. So you have to pick God, which is your purpose in life, is to give rise of the God within you and become that. And that has to be the priority. Nothing can be above that. No search for money, bills, because all that, when you are a magi and you are proficient, you will manifest money. And you know, it's really ridiculous how I hear people on these other channels, they talk about ridiculous stuff because they're so trapped in left brain linear thinking. They're like, oh, you Hoteppers, oh, you brothers and sisters, all, you know, you talk about manifesting and, you know, you got to do the work. You got to do the real work. You got to make sure your credit is good. You got to make sure that you have enough money in the bank, and you can't just be thinking everything is magical. Well, Hermes said, as above, so below. When I talk about manifesting things, I'm not saying don't do everything else. You'd be stupid to do that. I'm not telling you to negate the physical work. You should do that in conjunction with the physical work. But these people can only think in one way. They only think like, oh, you just do magic and that's it. And you just sit at home day and night waiting for the money to just drop out of the sky. No, you've got to go out there and do the physical work to bring the money to you as well. So, but when you put your magic behind it, you increase it tenfold for it to manifest. Like when I was training those whales on how to win in Vegas, right? I was teaching them how to manifest on what's that? The roulette table. Yeah, I don't know what it's called. Roulette. You got to go place the bet first, and then you do the magic, right? You don't just sit there and not place the bet. That would be stupid, right? So it's the same thing. You just don't do the magic, and you don't negate the physical work. The chips are not going to just place themselves on the bet, you know? So these people out there, they think that when you talk about magic and attracting money, that you're just talking about sitting home and not doing anything and just doing magic. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about putting the two together. It's like you being in the world, but not of the world. You know what I mean? It's like there's you and then there's your spirit. There's a duality. It's just not one or the other. It's both. But we have trouble thinking in those dualistic ways because we're trapped in left brain thinking. Now, each of you have amazing potential and amazing powers. And I want to tell you, like, I was in my kitchen the other night, and I'm seeing weird things going on, right? And I was telling my mate, I said, I keep seeing these weird things. Are they floaters? And she goes, no, those are not floaters. Those are spirits. Those are entities. He said, oh, okay, because every time I see them, I just write them off as a floater, you know. But you can't write all of them off as a floater. You know, does anybody know what I mean by a floater? Can you tell me what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about? Come on, somebody, do you know what I mean by floater? So maybe I shouldn't have jumped on that topic because you don't know what I mean by floater. All right. And so a floater, so when a spirit comes to you in your apartment, it comes, it's kind of like, it looks like this gray thing, gray, I don't know how you describe it, gray, shadowy gobbledygook, and it'll pass by real quick, you know, and you'll see it. And that's how you know there's spirits among you, right? Now, it's very similar to mistake that for a floater. Now, a floater is in your eye, and you have like these cells that are in your eye. So you'll see them in your eye, and they're natural. They're called, you know, go to your eye doctor. He'll say they're floaters. There's nothing they can do about it. Some of us have more floaters than others. So sometimes you'll if you look quickly left or right, a floater will move across. You might mistake that for a spirit. So I'm asking what I mean. I'm like, all those floaters that I'm seeing, she sees them too, so they're not floaters. So she's validating. Okay, so that's just what I'm talking about. You have to understand the difference. Yes, Mr. Second orbs, exactly. That's what I was looking for. That's the words I was looking for. Yeah, orbs, yes. They look like orbs. You'll see them, you know, and those are spirits. And, you know, sometimes if you're unlucky, you'll get a demon that'll be there, and then you get a little bit of a problem. But you'll know right away if it's a demon, you know, because when I had the one demon, I was in denial. Like, no, it can't be a demon. Then I'm hearing the growling, and I'm smelling the bad, foul odor. And I'm like, yeah, I know those are all signs, hallmarks of a demon, but still, it can't be a demon. You know, I was in denial. You know what I mean? Finally, I had to admit, oh, okay, It's a demon. When it started touching me and scratching me, I was like, okay, it's a demon. Got to do something about it, honey. We got a demon. Let's call the Ghostbusters here. So I want to thank you all for tuning into this broadcast. And please donate to the channel. Your donation is important. It allows me to write more ebooks and do a lot of more creative things like hold contests and things like that. All right. So this is Qesankh Ma Keperu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until the next broadcast, I'm in Ra.